Hi, in this video I will try to explain you how to read-write files in the loop in R. Not this loop, but this for instance. The structure of the for loop, which I use the most, is you write for, then in round brackets something in range, and then with this variable defined in this part you do something in figure brackets, print, and if you run it, then you will have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in your output. Let's try some real case. For instance, you use a library ChipPeakAnno, you set working directory, you list files, it's quite a mess, but you only want 2 files, imobs neurons, ignore the warning messages, then you run overlap picks, then define colors and do when. As you see, when the number of files is small, then of course you don't need anything extra. But what if you have 7 files? You might keep trying to load all files one by one, but I would advise you to do it in a loop. And what do you need for the loop is that you need to know names of variables, you need names of files, you assign one list of names to another, but you do not write equal or this left arrow for assignment, you do it differently. You define file names as list files with this mask, alright, and then names is you use a gsub and you replace this end with nothing in those files. We have names, and now we do the loop. I do it in 2 steps to make it more clear what's happening. So for e in 1 to length names, first I create a temporal data set format 2 ranges. This is how you read files in ChipPeakAnno, like here for instance, old line. And we know that it is a narrow peak format. It's not listed in the formats of G ranges, but it works. And then we create temp, and then we assign names of the variables to this data file. What will happen next? It waits, it converts all these orientations, and then it creates a series of large G ranges data, each with individual name. An advantage of this loop is that you are not making mistakes by typing all those names by hand. Actually, it's never recommended to type something important and long by hand. Since we imported 7 files, let's draw a Venn diagram. But here we hit a problem. If we load all 7, then it says it cannot do more than 5, and therefore it makes sense to split this data set on neurons, which is 31, 2, and 3, and others which are imobs. Here you have to tell explicitly all the data sets one after another. No list names are accepted, and then we do nicely Venn diagram, why not? But it's not the point. Suppose we do some transformation of our data sets, for instance annotate them. For this we import mouse annotation, this is mouse data, then we convert annotation to G ranges, everything goes through G ranges, then we do one data set in a time. not explicitly calling the name, but through the list of names calling first out of list with this function get. Function get offers you values of those names, not names themselves. And it works. In the output you get your bat file now with the notation assigned to ensemble gene names and its classification where the peak is compared to the gene, and you can annotate it further to the real gene names, but we don't care much. We mostly care about working in the loop. This line worked, we copy it to our loop. Before that we declare annotated names, a list of where I add an at the end, like this. Now I run the loop. It takes some time. Right. Now you can see that there is a set of an data for each of the 7 data sets. I convert one of those to data frame, then reduce the margins and call the pi for inside feature column in this data set, in this data frame, and get the pi, so everything is okay. And now we are ready to save all these annotated data sets to the file. This will be our third loop of this exercise. You probably figured out how this loop would look like. This is the one. Again, we have to create a new list of names. Now this list will be called toSave, where we paste unknown names and TSV extension, no separator in between, and then for E in the length of names, write table, essentially get the data behind unknown names, save it into toSave a list of names, separator is tabulator, row names false. That's all it takes. The end. And then if you go to the, no, not to the terminal, but to the directory where it was all happening, then you see all those annotated TSV files appearing. What you have seen in this exercise can be summarized with a single line. You do a trick of assigning data to names in lists, not by writing assignment symbols, but using functions assign and get. And in general, don't torture yourself by doing repetitive work, which students do very often. Use loops instead. It's not that difficult, and have a good time.